Hello and welcome to Reaching for the Moon, presented by Everglades Moon Local Council, Florida chapter of Covenant of the Goddess. COG supports individual works by its covens, members, and local councils. It's a vibrant network of a myriad of Wiccan and witchy resources, religious support, friendships, service opportunities, and more. To find out more, visit our website, emlc.net, our Facebook page, facebook.com/EvergladesMoon, or Twitter, @EMLCTweets.
Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 45, which is for Lughnassadh 2018. We are going to start off our podcast with Pandie's Pagan projects, and she's not going to teach you how to make something, she's going to talk about finding really cool things, and this is part of her Creating Your Altar series. And after that, I'm going to preempt Cabal's Foodoo segment with Cooking Corn on the Cob. We will have a Sea Spells by the Seashore segment with Coyote Morningstar, where he discusses sea gods. We'll also have a segment with Rayna on the beloved dead called Making an Ancestor. We will have more music as well, and I'll introduce those songs as they occur. But first, I'd like to put in a quick word about Merry Meet and Grand Council, which is Covenant of the Goddess's annual business meeting and festival. It gets moved from place to place. Every year it happens in a different place, and this year it is happening in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. It has not been in Fort Lauderdale since 2006, so if you are able to make it, it is August 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th in 2018, but you better hurry if you're going to register. Go to www.emlc.net and click on the tab to register for Grand Council. You can get a day pass, you can register for 1 day, 2 days, 4 days, so don't wait. This is very last opportunity for you to register for this year. So please go and see what the workshops will be like, what kind of wonderful presenters we're going to have, and come and join the rest of us for a really good time. And in the meantime, I hope you enjoy the podcast. Happy Lughnassadh!
Hey everyone, this is Alpandia, and it's time for another one of Pandie's Pagan projects. Before you start groaning, there is no Fimo or Sculpey clay involved in today's episode. You're welcome. But we are going to continue talking about our travel altars. One of the things that I have found in the process of doing this set of segments for our podcast is that it sometimes is much easier, I know you're laughing, to find items that really call to you rather than trying to build everything yourself. And I feel really bad that you might have thought, wow, if I don't build all the stuff for my travel altar, it's not going to be awesome, because it totally is. As I said at the beginning, there is no wrong way to do this. So today I'm going to share some thoughts on ways to collect items for your travel altar that don't involve you going to the craft store and buying Sculpey. However, you do maybe want to go to the craft store, because many craft stores, especially right now, have some really great aisles filled with dollhouse furniture, and my local craft store has a whole section of little fairy things, which, when I look at them through my witchy eyes, can totally be used to make besoms and cauldrons and elemental quarters and god and goddess icons. So you can definitely still go to your hobby shop, but you can find things other than things you have to build yourself. I also found some really neat wooden people-looking tokens for game boards, like for Trouble or Sorry or one of those. And using a little bit of paint and a little bit of stickers, I was able to make them into representations of different things. So you could put elemental symbols on them. You could paint them or use Mod Podge to paint pictures on them, attach pictures rather on them of your god and goddess, or whatever deity icon energies you want to incorporate into your altar. Another fantastic place to find altar items is Etsy. Etsy is wonderful. I am addicted to Etsy more so than you guys believe I am addicted to polymer clay. For real. There are some wonderful items on Etsy that are made specifically for witches and pagans. There are also items that you can simply use in a way that the seller doesn't maybe necessarily intend. I found a wonderful shop that makes little god and goddess icons out of resin that are all different colors and can be decorated with charms and bells and all sorts of wonderful things. And they fit really nicely into the box that I purchased for my travel altar. I have also found little candle holders, little seashells, all sorts of crystals. There's a million different things you can find on Etsy. And a lot of the people who are crafters on Etsy take requests. So you can make a custom order to have whatever you want created for your altar. Another thing you can do is you can simply find pictures that resonate with you, and using either Mod Podge or laminate or some other medium, just simply affix those to a little box that you take with you. I've seen some beautiful altars on Etsy, but you can make them yourself. I've seen some wonderful altars that are simply the person's favorite picture of an Orisha or a deity or even saints, anything. And maybe the other side has either a matching picture, has another Orisha or energy or saint or deity that is maybe seen as a partner to their primary person, or is simply decorated with pictures and stickers and charms of that represent that energy to them. You can find some wonderful charms in both the jewelry making section of your local craft store as well as the scrapbooking section of your local craft store. Trust me on this. My keys for my altar, my travel altar, came right out of a scrapbooking kit. So don't just limit yourself to what you think might have something useful. Feel free to wander around different places. You could find some amazing stuff in little consignment shops. You can find them at those discount stores like Ross and Marshall's and Home Goods. My boyfriend hates when we go to Home Goods because I always come out with new things for the altar. And if you are patient, like I try to be but am not, around Halloween, a lot of the big box stores start to put out amazing witchy things that you can totally incorporate into your altar. So please do not feel like the only way to make an altar, either for on the go or for your usage, is to build it all yourself, because there are a million different ways to make an altar, and you will make the one that is right for you. Another thing to remember when you're crafting your altar is to not get hung up on your details. I know, coming from me, this is funny. But remember, as things come into your life, as items come into your life, as deity brings you things, you can simply swap out what you might not resonate with so much anymore, or you might find something that's even more appropriate. I know I did that. I had made a little god and goddess icon for my altar, but then I found this lovely figurine on Etsy, and it really spoke to me in a way that mine didn't quite yet. And that's not to say that mine were wrong. It's just that when I saw this little figurine on Etsy, it really spoke to me in the voice of my deity. So don't feel bad if you've done stuff and you find something that you think might work better, because it's your altar. So it should represent you and make you feel good. And whether you feel good because you made stuff yourself or you feel good because you found items that are beautiful to you, make it yours. Anyhow, we're going to get back to our own crafting next time by making some altar cloths. Ooh. Totally no sculpting required. And then we're going to do a wrap up of how to maybe decorate our box and some final thoughts. I hope you've enjoyed this little series. And I will see you guys next time. Thanks for listening.
Bloduewedd, fair maiden, behind a face made of flowers, lie mysteries, beginnings, the knowing eyes of the owl. Bloduewedd, fair maiden, behind a face made of flowers, lie mysteries, beginnings, the knowing eyes of the owl. Bloduewedd, fair maiden, behind a face made of flowers, lie mysteries, fair maiden, behind a face made of flowers, lie mysteries, beginnings, the knowing face made of flowers. Bloduewedd, fair maiden, behind a face made of flowers, lie mysteries, beginnings, the knowing face made of flowers. Bloduewedd, fair maiden, behind a face made of flowers, lie mysteries, beginnings, the knowing face made of flowers. Bloduewedd, fair maiden, behind a face made of flowers, lie mysteries, beginnings, the knowing face made of flowers. Bloduewedd, fair maiden, behind a face made of flowers, lie knowing eyes of the owl, the knowing eyes of the owl, the knowing eyes of the owl, the knowing eyes of the owl. Thy mysteries, beginnings, the knowing eyes of the owl.
And that song was called Bloduewedd, and it's by Silverbranch from their album Hand to Hand, which sadly is out of print. But we were happy to be able to bring you that song with their permission. Hello everyone, this is Lady Bridget. Surprise, it's not Cabal. Cabal is really busy right now with Grand Council and Merry Meet and getting all this stuff together. He stepped in at the last minute to take over a lot of duties, so I'm letting him off the hook, and I'm going to hijack his segment and give you a little foodoo of my own. I don't really do highbrow cooking. Mine is more kitchen witchery. And for me, Lughnassadh has always been the middle of the summer and the corn season starts. When I was growing up in New England, this is the time of year when we were able to get fresh corn from the farmers markets, from the roadside stands, and even in the grocery stores. And I'm assuming that it's pretty much the same in most of North America and Northern Europe. And so I discovered something amazing I consider to be the best way to cook corn on the cob. And it's super easy. I found it on YouTube. You, too, can do this. What you do is you take your corn and do not husk it. Do not remove the outer stuff. Do not bother with taking off every little thread and piece of silk. Nope. Just leave it. Leave it all nicely wrapped up the way the goddess gave it to you. Put it in the microwave. 4 minutes each ear. So if you have 2 ears, that's 8 minutes. If you have 3 ears, that's 12 minutes. And if you have more than 3 ears, they probably won't fit. So go back to 2. And just do them in stages. So 4 minutes each ear. When you take them out, make sure you are wearing extremely heavy-duty oven mitts, because these puppies will be hot. Put it on a cutting board, take a nice sharp knife, and go to the end that used to be attached to the stalk. That's the end you're going to cut. Feel with your hands a little bit through the oven mitt where the little kernels begin. And you're going to cut just above the last row or so of the kernels. Don't worry, you don't have to get it exact. It's just that you want to be cutting the corn on the ear itself and not below the ear. Cut that thing right down on the kernels and toss away the bottom part. Now, grab the top where the stalk is, where the little silk stuff sticks out the top. I'm being extremely scientific here, you'll notice. Hold on to that and shake it up and down in a very embarrassing movement, if you know what I mean. You know what I mean if you're a guy. Anyway, shake it up and down in an obscene gesture until the ear of corn pops out the bottom, which it will. And you will be amazed because it will not have any silk stuck to it. Everything comes off. It's fantastic. It's just the best way to cook corn that I've found. And super, super easy. No more boiling water, no more adding sugar, all that, difficult stuff. Nuke it, 4 minutes, take it out, cut the end off, shake, 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 out pops the ear of corn. Couldn't be easier. And the best part is, you can save all of those little husks and let them dry out, and the silk, and let that dry out, and then you can make a corn dolly out of it. Yeah. So, if you have any questions, you can email me at ladybridget@gmail.com. But I don't think you'll have any questions because this is super easy. Now, for those of you who aren't used to buying corn fresh, because you buy it in a can, I'm talking to you now. The way you know that corn is fresh is you look at the silk that sticks out the top, and it should be yellowish green. It should not be brown. It should not be withered. And above all, it should not look mushy. So if it looks mushy, or if it's really withered, don't buy it. Go for another ear. And almost any ear of corn is going to taste really good this way. I've done it with white corn. I've done it with yellow corn. I've done it with sweet corn. And I just love it all because I love corn on the cob. And since I found this way to cook it, I no longer stress over boiling the water and adding the sugar and how long has it been in there and timing it and yada, yada, yada. I mean, I'm just telling you, this is so freaking easy. Anyway, hopefully Cabal will be back next month with something more, what's the adjective I want to use? Something more enlightening for your cooking pleasure. And in the meantime, enjoy your corn. Blessed be.
Welcome to Sea Spells by the Seashore. I am Coyote Morningstar, a water warlock and sea witch of West Palm Beach, and a solitary member of Everglades Moon. I begin to sing about Poseidon, the great god, mover of the earth and fruitless sea, god of the deep, who is also lord of Helicon and wide Aegae. A twofold office the gods allotted you, O shaker of the earth, to be a tamer of horses and a savior to ships. Hail Poseidon, holder of the earth, dark-haired lord. O blessed one, be kindly in heart, and help those who voyage by ship. Hymn to Poseidon by Homer. The Olympian god Poseidon, known to the Romans as Neptune, was one of the most important deities to the ancient Greeks, second only to Athena, and according to Plato, was the patron god of Atlantis. When the sons of Kronos revolted and replaced the Titans as supreme, the three brothers Zeus, Hades, and Poseidon drew lots to determine their dominions. Zeus became lord of the skies, Hades the lord of the underworld, and Poseidon became lord of the sea. To solidify his dominion over the other sea gods and goddesses, Poseidon sought to marry Amphitrite, the eldest daughter of Nereus, the old man of the sea. But who were these older gods and goddesses of the sea? Long before the Olympians, the ancient Greeks had numerous gods and goddesses that they prayed to for safe ocean voyages or abundant fish catches. When the earth Gaia first emerged from chaos, she immediately gave birth to Uranus, the sky, Tartaros, the pit, and Pontos, the sea. Pontos is the primordial or protogenoi god of the sea, who is the sea itself, pictured as a giant head rising from the water with crab claw horns and a flowing watery gray beard. His female counterpart, the primordial Thalassa, was also conceived as the sea itself, in the form of a matronly woman made of water rising waist high. With Pontos, Thalassa gave birth to all the fish and sea creatures. By his mother Gaia, the earth, Pontos became father to the sea gods and goddesses Nereus, Phorcys, Cato, Thaumas, and Eurybia. Nereus was the first old man of the sea, or Helioscaron, and represented the rich bounty of fish. He wed the Oceanid Doris, and she bore him 50 daughters, nymph goddesses collectively called Nereids. Nereus, like other old men of the sea, was a master shape-changer and had the prophetic voice. It was Nereus that Heracles wrestled for directions to the land of the Hesperides during one of his labors for the golden apples. Nereus was conceived as an old man with long beard, almost always wearing a chiton robe, and from the waist down had the long coiling tail of a fish. The eldest daughter of Nereus and Doris was Amphitrite, who the Romans called Salacia, the salty one. She was also equated with Thalassa and Tethys as the body of the sea itself. Loud moaning mother of fish, Amphitrite was the direct heir of marine power as eldest granddaughter of Pontos. As such, Poseidon courted her to become his queen and wife. At first she denied him and fled far past the straits of Heracles to escape his advances. Poseidon persuaded the dolphin god Delphin to find Amphitrite and convince her to accept Poseidon's proposal and become his queen. She eventually accepted, and riding on the back of Delphin, she returned to Poseidon's side. For his service, Poseidon raised Delphin among the stars as the constellation Delphinus. Other notable Nereids include Thetis, the mother of Achilles, Galatea, unrequited beloved of the Cyclops Polyphemus, and Chymatology and Chymodoche, who together with their sister Amphitrite could calm the wind and still the waves. Another son of Pontos and Gaia was Phorcys, representing the hidden dangers of the sea. He was depicted with the head, arms, and torso of a man, with the long coiled tail of a fish and 2 crab forelegs like a centaur. He is shown covered with spiky crab shell skin, with long gray hair, and almost always carrying a torch. Together with his sister Cato, they were the parents of monsters. Their offspring include Medusa and the other Gorgones, the Graeae, or Grey Sisters, who shared 1 eye and 1 tooth between them, Ladon, the Drakon that guards the golden apples of the Hesperides, Thusa, the swift, mother of the Cyclops Polyphemus by Poseidon, and Echidna, with the torso and head of a nymph, and from the waist down a serpent, who herself was a mother of monsters, such as the 3-headed dog Kerberos, the Hydra, the Sphinx, the Chimera, and many more. A third son of Pontos and Gaia was Thaumas, the wonders of the sea, who with his Oceanid wife Electra of the amber-tinged clouds was father to Iris, the rainbow, and the Harpiae, whirlwinds and waterspouts. Another daughter of Pontos and Gaia was Eurybia, the flint-hearted, who held power over the sea, presiding over the knowledge of the winds, the stars, seasons, and the tides, and was grandmother to the Astrae, or stars, the Anemoi, or winds, and grandmother to Hecate, goddess of witchcraft. who also held dominion over the sea like her grandmother. Of the Titan children of Gaia, fathered by Uranus, Tethys and Okeanos later became associated with the sea. The ancient Greek cosmology originally conceived the earth as a flat disk floating over the pit of Tartarus and covered by the sky dome of Uranus, and surrounded by the freshwater river Okeanos. All fresh water on the earth originated from Okeanos and his wife Tethys. Tethys was the mother of rain clouds, rivers, and springs. Tethys and Okeanos had thousands of daughters, Okeanides, and sons, Potamoi, river gods, all over the earth. As mother of rain clouds, Tethys was pictured with white wings sprouting from her brow, wearing robes of seaweed. After it was realized that the earth was not flat and was not surrounded by a freshwater river, Okeanos and Tethys became associated and equated with Pontos and Thalassa, respectively. Okeanos was originally pictured like his river god sons, head and torso of a man with large bull horns, and instead of legs, the long tail of a serpentine fish. Later artists gave him crab claw horns to associate him with the sea. Of the thousands of daughters born to Okeanos and Tethys, the eldest were numbered among the Titanides, or female titans, such as Styx, Okeanid of the river of the same name, Dione, considered by some the mother of Aphrodite, Metis, the mother of Athena, Doris, the mother of the Nereides, and Electra, the mother of Iris and the Harpiae. These were most likely heavenly goddesses of the clouds. The most famous of the Potamoi, Achelous, was god of the river Achelous in Aetolia, central Greece. Like all river gods, he was pictured as either a man-headed bull, a man with large bull horns and the tail of a serpentine fish, or as a robed old man reclining with a water urn on its side. Achelous competed with Heracles for the hand of the Aetolian princess Deianira. During their wrestling match, the hero tore off one of the god's horns, forming the legendary cornucopia, or horn of plenty. Other sea gods include Triton and Proteus, sons of Poseidon. Proteus, the god of seals, was the son of Poseidon and the Nereid Samathe, the nymph of beach sand, and was considered a Helios Geron, or old man of the sea. In the Odyssey, he was pictured as a blue-skinned merman with copper-green hair and a serpentine fishtail, and resided near the delta of the Nile River and the island of Pharos. He has strong ties with the Phoenician god Melkart. Triton was the son of Amphitrite and Poseidon and lived with his parents at the bottom of the Aegean Sea. He was seen as a beautiful youth with 2 fishtails instead of legs. Triton was often pluralized like Pan was, and Tritones were considered the satyrs or panes of the sea. There were also a few mortals who became sea gods, such as Glaucus, who became an immortal sea god by eating a magical herb planted by Kronos, and Leucothea and Palamon. Leucothea, the white goddess, when mortal, was the princess Ino, and her husband incurred the wrath of Hera by them fostering the infant Dionysus. Hera caused Ino's husband to enter into a murderous rage, killing their eldest son. Ino grabbed her younger son, Melicertes, and jumped into the sea to escape. The Theoi Halioi welcomed mother and son and turned them into deities, Ino becoming Leucothea and Melicertes becoming Palemon, shown as a young boy riding a dolphin. Together they aided sailors in distress. So although Poseidon is lord of the sea, he's not the only god or goddess of the deep that we can call upon and honor. The ancient Greeks left us a multitude of Theoi Halioi.
And next up, we're going to have a song called Wondrous Water. It's by the Crow Women from their album Crow Magic. And you can learn more about Crow Women and buy their music on cdbaby.com.
Water, wondrous water, I kneel before you, giver of life. I cannot live without you within me. You give me life. You give me life. Water, wondrous water, I kneel before you, taker of life. I cannot live with me within you. You give me death. You give me death. You take away my breath. Water, you are wondrous. I sing to you. Do you hear? Do you reply? Are you alive? I've had flashing moments, feeling water alive, playing with me, playing with me, playing with me. In these flashing moments, I believe in water, wondrous water. I kneel before you, giver and taker of life. I cannot live within or without you. You give me life, and you bring death. Splashes to splashes, drop to drop. You give me life. You give me death. Water, wondrous water, be here with me.
Those who have died have never, never left. The dead have a pact with the living. Is the ancestors' breath in the voice of the waters?
Hi everyone, this is Rayna Templeby. I'm back with another episode of The Beloved Dead, this time for Lughnassadh, the first harvest. We are going to talk today about how to make an ancestor. And this is something that a lot of people don't really think a lot about. And in the craft, we have some very clear ideas about what is good and what is a proper and appropriate way to make an ancestor. And the topic of today's podcast was chosen because in my community, we recently lost a very beloved member. A very powerful witch passed, and so it's on my mind as to how to handle this process. I've done this a number of times before with beloved members of the community who have passed over, and I just thought it might be a good thing to share with all of you. So over the last few podcasts, we've discussed how to create an ancestor altar, some of the things you could put on the altar, how to treat it, the fact that it's an ongoing obligation. Hopefully by now you have thought of some of the people that you would like to place on that altar as your beloved dead. And this is fairly straightforward when you are dealing with people who have passed a long time ago. So if you are interested in having Einstein or Sybil Leek or somebody who passed decades ago on your altar, it's a straightforward process of finding an appropriate image and or object that signifies them and putting it on your altar, and then paying attention to it and making appropriate offerings. If it is somebody who is just passed, there is a different process, and I'm going to talk about that in detail because it's important for all parties involved. Just a moment to review one idea that we have discussed in earlier podcasts, which is not every person who is dead is a good inclusion in your ancestor work. We need to be discerning, just as we are in life, about people that we spend time with. And so somebody like a relative who was very difficult in your lifetime would possibly and most likely make a very difficult ancestor to work with from the other side. So there is absolutely no reason that you need to add everybody who passes away to your ancestor altar. In fact, it's much more important to be more discerning. This is going to be, when you add somebody to your ancestor altar, it's going to be an ongoing relationship, just as if they were alive, just in a different form. So think carefully about that and choose your ancestors wisely. In the case of a beloved member of your witch community, your coven, your tradition, obviously this is somebody who you would like to maintain an ongoing relationship with and who potentially could be very useful to you as a guide from the other side. Immediately following death is a very potent transitional time for a spirit. There are different religious traditions which elaborate on this period in time. So in Tibetan Buddhism, there's a book called the Tibetan Book of the Dead that explains in great detail the challenges that a soul goes through immediately after death. It's in some way similar to the Egyptian ideas of the challenges that a soul went into after death. The Maya people of Central America had a similar cosmology. In the craft and in modern paganism, we often try our best to observe a period of support for the spirit during this time and quiet reflection. So during these 3 days, craft elders in my tradition and that I have learned from have said that the spirit is disengaging from the physical world and that takes some time. Every spirit is slightly different in this process. Some spirits are very ready to go and ready to leave the world of form. Others, as you can imagine, are not as ready to leave the world of form. And so it is important to give this process time. And the 3 days is the minimum to allow this process to occur. During that 3 days, you as a witch should be praying for the spirit to have a safe passage. You can be lighting a single yellow candle, not a slew of candles, not an entire altar full of candles, but a single candle to help light their way. You could be with the body if you are fortunate enough to have that opportunity to just sit with the body, to sing and pray over the body, being present for the process that it's going through, the spirit is going through. It's very, very potent. And some elders recommend that it is best not to disturb the possessions or the living space of the newly departed. This means leaving their home, leaving their altar stuff, leaving their clothing more or less as is for those 3 days. This just allows the spirit to focus on the transformation as opposed to the transformation of their physical possessions, which will occur later and they will not necessarily care so much about once they are more fully present in their new state. Okay, after those 3 days is when we would schedule memorials, wakes, rites for the dead. These are very important. And I just want to say one thing to keep in mind before we talk about those memorials. In many cases, almost all cases, witches and pagans will have to share that responsibility and privilege with the family of origin. And this can sometimes cause stress, especially if the family of origin is of a different faith, which they almost always are. I would like to recommend that you not stress about this and that you not struggle with the family of origin, that we show compassion for all parties. A part of our faith is acceptance of death, much more so than many other faiths. We can understand the necessity of death and the transformation that it allows. Other faiths have a much more difficult time accepting death and may be truly experiencing pain. So if you are in the position of having to interact with family members who are not witches or pagans, I just recommend that you try to accommodate as best as you can. Memorials and rites for the dead vary tremendously. I'm not going to talk about them in detail because that's something that each tradition has, and hopefully each of us as witches have put down some ideas or shared some ideas with our coven about what we would like. I do want to mention that it is important as somebody who does ancestor work to attend memorials and rites for the dead and wakes. And here's the reasons. There are various magical reasons. Number one is that as witches who do ancestor work, we have an obligation to assist the dead in their transition, in their transitory state, and attending the memorial, contributing our energy to the memorial, to the rite, aids the spirit in its transition. It's energy that is often made available to the spirit. The spirit, if it's still present on the earth or in touch with people who are in the memorial, will know that this is being done and will help the spirit accept their new state or fully embrace their new state, depending on where they are in the spectrum. So that is an obligation, responsibility on our part. Likewise, participating in the memorials and the rites allows us to acknowledge our emotional experience of their passing. And this is very, very important for the craft. We allow for ourselves to grieve. We allow for ourselves to be angry and hurt when someone departs unexpectedly. We understand this as a natural reaction and as something that is actually very healthy. That expression of emotion builds a stronger bond with the spirit that has passed. And so if you are a witch who wants to do ancestor work, the stronger your emotional connection with that spirit who has passed, the more access you will have, the easier access you will have to that ancestor once the person is fully settled on the other side. Emotional connections are linkages. They are highways of energy. And when you have that emotional reaction and connection, you have access to the connection, to the relationship, to the flow back and forth. If we cut off our feelings of grief and loss, we sever some of our connection to that spirit, and thus our connection to them when they become ancestors will be more difficult. So do allow yourself to feel, do allow yourself to be distraught and to have fear, to grieve in all of its forms. In fact, if you need to, if you are grieving profoundly, you may not be satisfied by the community memorials or wakes. You may need to do solo rituals as well in order to help yourself go through the transition of loss. And that can be very useful. Okay, so those are magical reasons to attend memorials. As an anthropologist, I'll just add that memorials are often the way in which a community reestablishes order after death. If you could think about it, the memorial is the way in which the community, the broader community of that individual comes together and says, we acknowledge this transition has happened, we witness it, we participate in it, and we continue, we survive. And so they can be very powerful for a community in the sense of reestablishing order and continuing on. Now, here's probably the most important part of this podcast. As witches, we are taught very clearly that we do not reach out to the spirit of the departed for a year and a day after the spirit has passed. It is not appropriate to put the photo of a recently departed person on your ancestor altar. It is not appropriate to seek out information from them about their experience on the other side. and it is not appropriate to ask them to aid you during this time. I know that there will be exceptions to this principle, but in general, this is a very important thing to try and observe. This is because we need to respect the process by which the spirit transitions into its new state, and that process takes time. We also need to respect our own process of adjusting to life without that person in the world of form. Both of these things take time. A year and a day can sound like a very long time when you are grieving and you're wishing that you could still speak with a person who has passed. However, the discipline of waiting that year and a day is very important to a witch. It's a similar kind of discipline that we have to exercise in lots of other situations where we wish we could do something, but we need to take a certain path to get there. So believe me, this is all for the best. There are many other things that you can do during that year and a day. So a very important one is to pass on or understand how the magical tools of the dearly departed will be disposed of. So hopefully the witch has mentioned this to people in her coven or even given the things away beforehand. But obviously, as people who work with tools, physical objects, which are animate, right? We have animated them in ritual when we consecrate them. These are living entities which deserve respect as well. And so while I recommended that you not disturb a witch's altar for 3 days after she has passed, during that year and a day after she has passed is the appropriate time to find new homes for those tools or to dispose of them. And there are, of course, lots of different specifics on that depending on your tradition. Don't overlook what we might consider more mundane tools, because those also contain the energy of the dearly departed. So house keys, car keys, a favorite coffee mug, obviously jewelry, clothing. These are very powerful material connections to the dearly departed. And if you were close to that person and want to remain close as they transition, even those mundane objects can be very, very potent for you. So the appropriate disposition of magical tools, that's a very important thing to do during that year. Planting a tree and planting other kinds of seeds and things that will grow and sprout and remind you of the cycle of death and rebirth is a very important thing to do during that year and a day. Many different pagans have traditions of planting a tree as a memorial to a dearly departed person, and I think that's a beautiful tradition, especially because you get to think about what kind of tree they would like and where it will be, and it causes an ongoing relationship with the energy of the ancestor to plant a tree and then have to care for it. So remember to do this with full consciousness and care for that tree. But even the process of planting a garden or planting any kind of seeds magically brings in the energy of renewal and rebirth, and that's a useful and healing thing for people who are grieving. Another thing to do is to just pray, to just offer prayers to the gods of the departed. Not to your gods necessarily, because again, this is a time in which we are focused on the successful transition of the departed and their arrival in the Summerlands. So while you may not have ever worked with their gods before, maybe you have, but maybe you haven't, this would be a time to learn about those gods, to offer prayers to those gods, to ask them to continue to watch over their child and to guide them into the Summerland. You can watch for messages. You can and you should watch for messages from the dearly departed during this year and a day. You may see them in dreams. You may hear their voice. You may see omens that you think that they have sent. If you always shared a certain favorite song and that song comes on the radio at a certain time, it's very possible that this is a message to you from them. Right? These are beautiful little experiences when they happen, and it's really important to be conscious and aware of them and allow them to happen. It doesn't mean that you're going to be distracting them from their process of transition to observe these sorts of omens. And again, depending on the personality of the dearly departed, they may do a lot of this. They may be very concerned about the people that they've left behind. Mothers who pass when they have children are often very concerned and continue to be present in the lives of the children. However, Some spirits are very comfortable on the other side and they are ready to move on, and you don't hear from them for a year or more. And that is not a reflection on their lack of care. It is truly, in my experience, a reflection of the fact that they are wrapped up in their new world, right? So think about it. On the other side, they have to learn, again, because we're all born with the spell of forgetfulness, they have to learn about what it's like to be in spirit as opposed to in form, like in our world. They are reunited with beloved ones that had gone before. They are reviewing their life, reviewing their karma and their decisions, and deciding what's going to happen next. They are reforming in the soul stream of their families. This is a very busy time for those spirits. It's like a new job. If you can remember what it's like when you have a new job, you suddenly have all these new people to meet, you have new obligations, skills, new physical habits. So often spirits are very busy at first, and if you don't receive visitations in dreams or through omens, please don't take that as any kind of indication. It's just another reason why it's important to allow this year and a day to pass before you start to reach out to them. Because they've got stuff to do, you've got stuff to do. And of course, during this year and a day, you should be preparing the photo that you want to have of them to place on your altar, or the memento. And it doesn't sound like a difficult project, but sometimes you have a lot of different choices of photos. Sometimes you don't have any photos and you have to search for one. Take your time with this process. Choose something that really inspires you about the person, and then get it framed nicely, get it ready. So that's part of the timeline. What happens after that year and a day is that you don't immediately rush to put them on the altar, but you take the time to check in. You take the time to check in with their spirit and say, is now the appropriate time? Would you like to be on the ancestor altar? If you are coming up on the season of working with the dead, if it is Mabon or Samhain, it may be that the veil is thin and you feel them very present already, in which case likely you will get a yes to put their photo on the altar. If you are busy with other things, if you are distracted, if it's the wrong time of the year, if they are busy with other things as a spirit on the other side of the world, it is not the right time. You will probably get maybe not a no, but a let's wait and see. Honor this information. Tune in and honor it. This is you establishing a relationship with them in spirit form. It's probably the first and most important exchange that you will have with them in spirit form. And that's going to lay the groundwork for your ongoing interactions with them as an ancestor. Once you get that yes, it will be very clear. You put them on the altar. You can begin altar work, as we've discussed in earlier podcasts, related to them and related to them as your ancestor and as your guide from the other side. That may include food offerings or objects or particular actions that they like to do, things that help you connect with them and maintain that connection, things that they enjoyed in this lifetime. These are all things that will come to you, but remember to do it consciously and remember that it is an ongoing obligation. Right? I hope this has been helpful, and I hope that you will tune in next time. We will have some more altar work for you, and have a wonderful first harvest of Lughnassadh. Blessed be.
Those who have died have never left. The dead have a pact with the living. Is the ancestors' word in the voice of the waters?
Hi everyone! Before we begin our last segment of this episode, we'd like to thank you for listening. Putting a podcast together is a time-consuming labor of love, but knowing that someone is listening to our hard work and hopefully gaining something from it makes it worthwhile. Would you let us know you like the podcast by going to our website at emlc.net, click on the podcast tab, and write a comment. Tell us what you like and what you'd like to hear more of on our podcast. And even better, why not leave us a rating on iTunes? Ratings help us become more visible to more people. It's not about ego, it's all about service. Thank you, and blessed be.
The next song is by Mama Gina, one of our favorite artists, and she'll also be performing at Grand Council this year, so get your tickets now. The song that's going to take us out is Goddess of Letting Go, and it's on her album Goddess Kissed. Blessed be.
Brushing the knots from her beautiful hair, the knots that the fairies tied. A world between us, though we both breathe the air. One of us drifts in the night. So go on and ask me your questions, child. The answers you already know. Tonight she will walk with the goddess of letting go. Taking her hand in the moment is now and it's here. The past and the future beyond our control. In this ending, there's nothing to fear. So go on and ask for directions, child. The path is one you will know. Tonight we all walk with the goddess of letting go. As light as a soul she was born to, nothing to bind her here. The demons she battled now gather as friends. Their wisdom is perfectly clear. So go on and make your way homeward. What you need you already know. Tonight we all walk with the goddess of letting go. Tonight we all walk with the goddess of letting go. Just one more drop in the ocean, just one more soul for the sea. We grasp and we grow and we hold on, and in one breath we set it all free. So go on and ask me your questions, child. The answers you already know. Tonight we all walk with the goddess. Tonight we all walk with the goddess. Tonight we all walk with the goddess of letting